Ever felt stuck, staring at a blank page or a complex problem, wishing for a sudden spark of genius? We have all been there, trying to force a breakthrough with pure logic. But what if the key to unlocking your most potent, original ideas isn't more thinking, but less? This video will reveal how tapping into your often ignored intuition can become your secret weapon for unparalleled creative breakthroughs. We live in a world that worships the rational mind. From the moment we enter school, we are trained to analyze, to categorize, and to deduce. We are taught that every problem has a linear solution. If you are stuck, the advice is always the same. Think harder, focus, grind. But have you noticed that thinking harder rarely produces genius? It produces stress. It produces fatigue. It produces safe, predictable answers. But it rarely produces the spark that changes everything. This is the great paradox of creativity. The harder you try to grab the answer with your conscious mind, the further it slips away. It is like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands. To understand why this happens, we must look at the architecture of the human mind. Imagine your mind is an iceberg. The tip of the iceberg, the small part visible above the water, is your conscious logic. It is limited. Cognitive science tells us that the working memory can only hold about 7 pieces of information at once. 7. That is the limit of your processor. Logic is a flashlight. It is a narrow beam of intense focus. It is excellent for organizing what you already know. It is excellent for execution, but a flashlight cannot show you the whole landscape. It cannot connect dots that are miles apart. Now, look at the part of the iceberg under the water. This is your unconscious mind. This is the realm of intuition. It is not limited to 7 bits of information. It processes millions of data points simultaneously. It holds every memory, every emotion, every smell, and every pattern you have ever experienced in your life. It is not a flashlight. It is a supercomputer running in the dark. When we try to solve a complex creative problem using only logic, we are asking the flashlight to do the work of the supercomputer. We are trying to force a linear solution onto a non-linear world. This is why we get stuck. This is why we feel blocked. Writer's block, or creative block, is not a lack of talent. It is a traffic jam in the conscious mind. It is the ego trying to do a job it is not qualified to do. Think about the greatest breakthroughs in history. Albert Einstein did not discover the theory of relativity while staring at a blackboard doing math equations. He discovered it while daydreaming about riding a beam of light. Archimedes did not discover the principle of buoyancy while working in his lab. He discovered it while relaxing in a bathtub. The structure of DNA came to James Watson not during data analysis, but in a dream about spiral staircases. What do all these moments have in common? They happened when the logic was turned off. They happened when the individual stepped away from the problem and allowed the unconscious to speak. We call this the incubation period. But in our hyper-productive society, we treat this period as laziness. We feel guilty if we are not actively working. We check our phones. We force the process. We fill every second of silence with noise. In doing so, we are suffocating our intuition. We are keeping the water surface so turbulent that the messages from the deep cannot rise to the top. Intuition is not magic. It is high-speed pattern recognition. It is your brain scanning vast archives of information that your conscious mind has forgotten and finding a connection. But this connection is subtle. It is a whisper. And logic is a shouting tyrant. Logic says, that doesn't make sense. That's not how we do things. That's risky. Logic is a defense mechanism. It wants safety. It wants the known path. Creativity, by definition, requires the unknown path. Therefore, logic and creativity are often at war. To access your genius, you must learn to negotiate a ceasefire. You must learn when to use the flashlight and when to turn it off and trust the dark. This brings us to the concept of cognitive inhibition. Creative people often have lower levels of cognitive inhibition. This means they are less able to filter out irrelevant information. To a logical mind, a bird flying past the window is a distraction. To an intuitive mind, the bird's flight pattern might solve an aerodynamic problem. The logical mind builds walls to focus. The intuitive mind tears down walls to connect. If you are constantly building walls through stress, rigid routines, and forced focus, you are locking out the solution. You are trapped in what psychologists call functional fixedness. You only see the hammer as a tool to hit nails. Intuition sees the hammer as a weight, a pendulum, a doorstop, or a symbol. To break free, we must understand the difference between the architect and the muse. The architect is your logical brain. He is great at planning, editing, and building structures. The muse is your intuitive brain. She is wild, chaotic, and the source of all raw material. The problem is that most of us let the architect into the room too early. We start editing before we have even created. We judge the idea before it has taken a breath. The architect kills the muse. In this video, we are going to learn how to reverse this dynamic. We are going to learn how to enter the theta state. This is the brainwave state between waking and sleeping. It is the borderland where the conscious and unconscious meet. It is where the magic happens. Thomas Edison knew this. He used to sit in a chair with a steel ball in his hand. He would allow himself to drift into a half-sleep state to access his intuition. As soon as he fell asleep, his hand would relax, the ball would drop, and the noise would wake him up. He would immediately write down the ideas that were floating in that twilight zone. He was hacking his own biology to bypass logic. He understood that his best ideas were not his. They were transmissions from the deeper mind. But today, we have lost this art. We are terrified of silence. We are terrified of not knowing the answer immediately. We have confused information with wisdom. Logic processes information. Intuition accesses wisdom. We are drowning in information, but starving for wisdom. The first step to reclaiming your creative power is to admit that you, the conscious ego, are not the genius. You are the vessel. The genius is something that flows through you when you get out of your own way. The block you are feeling right now, it is not a wall, it is a door. But it is a door that only opens outwards. If you push against it with the force of logic, you only jam it tighter. You must step back. You must yield. You must allow the door to open. In the next part, we will explore the practical techniques to silence the architect and summon the muse. We will look at how to distinguish between true intuition and mere fear, and we will discover why your body often knows the answer before your brain does. The journey from the head to the heart is the longest journey you will ever take. But it is the only path to the masterpiece. We often speak of gut feelings as if they were metaphors. But they are not metaphors. They are biology. To unlock your intuition, you must reconnect with your physiology. Your brain is not the only place where you think. You have a second brain in your gut, the enteric nervous system. It contains millions of neurons. It produces more serotonin than your head. It is connected to your brain by the vagus nerve, a superhighway of information. Neuroscience calls this the somatic marker hypothesis. Before your conscious mind creates a logical thought, your body has already reacted. Imagine you are walking down a street and you see a shadow. Your heart rate spikes, your stomach tightens, your skin gets cold. This happens milliseconds before your logical brain says, "That might be a threat." Your body processes the environment faster than your intellect. When we are stuck creatively, it is often because we are living entirely in our heads. We are disembodied brains floating in a jar of stress. We ignore the subtle signals from the body because we deem them irrational. But the body is the antenna of the unconscious. If you are working on a project and you feel a physical heaviness, a draining of energy, that is data. Your intuition is telling you, this is the wrong path. Conversely, if an idea makes you feel a sudden expansion in your chest, if you feel a vibration of excitement, even if the idea seems crazy, that is data. That is the yes signal from the deep. To access this, you must practice interoception. This is the ability to feel what is happening inside your skin. Most of us are numb. We use coffee, sugar, and screens to numb our bodily sensations. We push through fatigue. We ignore tension. By numbing the body, we cut the phone line to the muse. The next time you face a difficult decision or a creative block, stop thinking. Close your eyes. Scan your body. Does this option make you feel heavy or light? Does it make you feel constricted or expanded? The body does not know how to lie. The mind lies all the time. Now let us talk about the shower effect. Why do your best ideas come when you are in the shower, or driving or washing dishes? Why do they arrive exactly when you stop looking for them? Neuroscientists call this the default mode network, DMN. When you are focused on a specific task, your brain uses the task-positive network. This is the architect at work, focused, linear. But when you do something repetitive and boring, when you disengage from the problem, the brain switches gears. The default mode network activates. This network connects regions of the brain that normally do not talk to each other. It allows for associative thinking. It connects a memory from 10 years ago with a problem you face today. It is in this state that the eureka moment happens. But here is the trap. We are destroying our default mode network with constant stimulation. When we have a spare moment, in the elevator, in line at the store, on the toilet, we pull out our phones. We force the brain back into focus mode. We deny ourselves the boredom necessary for brilliance. If you want creative breakthroughs, you must schedule strategic boredom. You must create pockets of time where you are doing absolutely nothing. Go for a walk without a podcast. Sit in a chair and stare at a wall for 20 minutes. It will feel uncomfortable. It will feel like wasting time. But you are clearing the runway for the intuition to land. You are telling the architect to take a break so the muse can enter the room. Another powerful technique to bypass logic is stream of consciousness writing. Some call this morning pages. The idea is simple. You wake up, and before you check your phone, before you speak to anyone, you write 3 pages of whatever comes into your head. You do not edit. You do not stop. You do not correct grammar. If you have nothing to say, you write, "I have nothing to say," until something else comes out. Why does this work? Because your logical mind is a perfectionist. It acts as a filter. It blocks bad ideas. But often, the genius idea is hiding right behind the bad idea. By writing without stopping, you overwhelm the filter. You exhaust the architect. You flush out the sewage of your surface thoughts, your worries, your to-do lists, your pettiness. and once the sewage is cleared, the clear water begins to flow. You will be surprised at what comes out on the third page. Solutions to problems you didn't even know you were solving. Insights that feel like they came from someone else. This is the muse speaking through the cracks in your ego. However, there is a danger we must address. How do you distinguish intuition from fear? This is the most common question. Is my gut telling me not to do this because it's wrong? Or am I just afraid? The voice of fear and the voice of intuition can sound similar, but they have different frequencies. Fear is loud. Fear is frantic. Fear creates a sense of urgency and panic. You must decide now. Disaster is coming. Fear is emotional and chaotic. It screams in your head. Fear is usually based on the past, trauma, or the future, anxiety. Intuition is different. Intuition is quiet. Intuition is calm. It does not scream. It states. It feels like a sudden knowing, a drop of certainty in a sea of doubt. Intuition is neutral. It says, go left. It doesn't say, go left or you will die. Just go left. Intuition is grounded in the present moment. If you hear a voice in your head that is abusive, critical, or hysterical, that is not your intuition. That is your trauma. That is your ego trying to protect you. Intuition is a benevolent guide. It is detached from the outcome. To hear it, you must lower the volume of your fear. You must breathe through the panic until you find the stillness underneath. In that stillness, the answer is usually waiting. It was there all along. You just couldn't hear it over the noise of your anxiety. Logic demands proof before action. Show me the data, and then I will move. Intuition demands action before proof. Move, and I will show you the way. This is terrifying for the rational mind. It feels like jumping off a cliff. But every great creative act is a leap of faith. You cannot plan a masterpiece. You can only discover it. You must be willing to look foolish. You must be willing to follow a hunch that makes no logical sense just because it feels right. History is full of people who were called crazy until they were called geniuses. They were simply listening to a frequency that others could not hear. In the final part of this master class, we will look at how to integrate these two forces. We do not want to kill the architect. We need him to build the structure, but we need him to serve the muse, not the other way around. We will discuss the oscillating rhythm of the creative process, how to switch between the open mode, intuition, and the closed mode, logic, and how to build a life that is a vessel for the unknown. The code is simple. Logic is the servant. Intuition is the master. When you flip this hierarchy, you stop forcing, you start flowing, and the blank page stops being a mirror of your emptiness and becomes a window into the infinite. We have spent a lot of time dismantling the tyranny of logic, but we must be careful not to swing to the other extreme. We do not want to banish the architect forever. Without logic, intuition is just a dream. It has no form. It has no structure. The goal of the creative master is integration. It is the ability to dance between two distinct modes of being. John Cleese, the famous creative, calls this the open mode and the closed mode. The open mode is expansive. It is playful. It is curious. It is where the muse lives. In this mode, there are no wrong answers. There is no time pressure. There is no judgment. You are like a child playing in a sandbox. The closed mode is contractive, it is decisive, it is critical, it is where the architect lives. In this mode, you execute, you edit, You polish, you ship. The tragedy of the modern creator is that we try to be in both modes at the same time. We try to write and edit the sentence simultaneously. We try to brainstorm and judge the idea in the same breath. This is like driving with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. You ruin the engine, and you go nowhere. The secret is separation. When you sit down to create, you must consciously enter the open mode. You must hang a sign on the door of your mind that says, "No architects allowed." You generate wild, messy, chaotic ideas. You follow the hunch. You listen to the quiet voice. Only when the session is over, only when the raw material is on the page, do you invite the architect back in. You say, "Okay, now you can look, now you can organize, now you can judge." This oscillation is the heartbeat of creativity. Expand, contract, expand, contract. If you can master this rhythm, you will never be blocked again, because you will never be asking a part of your brain to do a job it cannot do. This leads us to an ancient concept from Taoism called Wu Wei. It translates to effortless action. It does not mean laziness. It does not mean doing nothing. It means acting in alignment with the flow of nature. When you use pure logic to force a solution, you are swimming upstream. You are fighting the current. It is exhausting. When you use intuition, you are swimming downstream. You are letting the current carry you. The water does the work. You just steer. Have you ever noticed that when you stop caring so much about the outcome, when you stop trying so hard to impress people, the work becomes better? This is Wu Wei. It is the state where the doer disappears and only the doing remains. In the West, we call this flow state. In flow, the prefrontal cortex, the seat of the inner critic, temporarily shuts down. You lose your sense of self. You lose your sense of time. You become a conduit. To enter this state, you must be willing to surrender control. Logic loves control. Intuition loves surrender. And this brings us to the final and most difficult barrier, ego. Why do we cling to logic? Because logic makes us feel safe. It makes us feel smart. If I can explain why I did something, I can defend myself against criticism. I have the data. I have the spreadsheet. I am right. Intuition offers no defense. If you follow a hunch and it fails, you look foolish. Why did you do that? I don't know, I just felt like it. That sounds weak to the rational mind, but the greatest creators in history were willing to look foolish. They understood that the ego is the enemy of the work. The ego wants to look good. The muse wants to tell the truth. They are often at odds. To tap into your intuition is to admit that you do not know everything. It is an act of humility. It is saying to the universe, "I am listening. Tell me what to do." There is a term the ancient Greeks used, demonic. It didn't mean evil. It referred to a guiding spirit, a genius that lived within you but was separate from you. The Romans called it a genius. You didn't have a genius. You had a genius. It was a spirit that assisted you. This psychological distance is healthy. If your work bombs, it wasn't you. Your genius had a bad day. If your work is a masterpiece, you don't get a big head. You just thank your genius for showing up. This protects you from the crushing pressure of being creative. It is not all on you. You are just the laborer. You show up, you hold the pen, you listen. So how do we integrate this into a modern life? We start by respecting the incubation period. When you are faced with a complex problem, do the research. Use your logic. Load the brain with facts. Then, stop. Walk away. Give the problem to your unconscious. Say to yourself, I am handing this over to the night shift. Go to sleep, go for a run, play with your dog. Trust that the machinery below the waterline is working. The answer will come. It might come as a whisper. It might come as a shout. It might come as a physical sensation. When it comes, honor it. Write it down. Act on it. The more you trust your intuition, the stronger it gets. It is a relationship. If you ignore a friend every time they speak, they stop calling. If you ignore your intuition, it goes silent. But if you answer the call, if you take the risk, it will speak louder and clearer. We are living in an age of artificial intelligence. Computers can do logic better than we ever will. They can process data faster. They can calculate probabilities perfectly. But they cannot dream. They cannot feel. They cannot make the irrational leap of faith that leads to a new paradigm. That is your domain. That is the human advantage. The world does not need more human calculators. We have machines for that. The world needs seers. The world needs dreamers. The world needs intuitives. The world needs you to turn off the flashlight and learn to see in the dark. The blank page is not empty. It is full of ghosts, waiting for you to give them a voice. Stop thinking. Start listening.